Welcome. I am so excited to be here today with John Taylor, the founder and CEO of EVEREADY Financials. This is a Northwestern mutual wealth management company founded in 2023 out of New York City. John, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. I'm so excited to talk with you. I wanted to ask you first, you built a very impressive career from starting here at RIT in artificial intelligence and robot vision, eventually then graduating from Stevens Institute of Technology in electrical engineering. You then went into your family's hardware store space, and then from there, now you're in financial advising. That's a heck of a journey. Can you please walk me through how you got started and how that journey took you from your engineering roots into this incredible career in financial advising that you've got?
Yeah, of course. And first of all, thank you for having me. To give back to RIT, which is, even though I did go to Stevens, I do consider RIT to be my alma mater. This is where my heart is. So just to be here is an honor. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
It was really interesting. And so after finishing college, I was applying to law schools in Japan.
Sure.
And as I was applying to law schools in Japan, being 2008, I figured the iPhone was invented, intellectual property law. I was like, oh my gosh, this is where it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I started working for my father, and I had worked for him over the course of my entire life, summers and school breaks, etc. But I worked for him full time over the summer after I graduated because I wanted to start to earn money while I was applying for law school.
Sure.
Quick pro tip, applying for law schools in the Japanese paperwork is not as easy as you would think it would be.
Really?
Yeah, it's not as easy as you would
shocking.
think. Yeah, so what ended up happening, started working for him, and really what ended up, the solution was that my engineering background from RIT allowed me to solve a lot of small business problems that we were having my father never recognized before.
Interesting.
And so the engineering problem solving skill set was something that I really took to heart with me from RIT, and something I was able to apply in multi-disciplines, not just particularly in engineering.
Yeah.
I found that because in that space, my family hardware business, there had been no one else that was doing critical thinking in the same way.
Sure.
It was really advantageous. And so over the course of the 8 years I was there full time, I ended up being able to triple the size of the company over the course of those 8 years. Unfortunately, in 2015, our biggest competitor came and approached us. We were doing about $7.2 million in totality at the time. They were doing $2.1 billion with a B.
Sure.
So we were a smidgen of a fraction of a decimal of the pie chart, a little fly in the ointment, if you will.
Yeah.
And they came to us and they said, hey, either we can put you out of business or we can acquire you. And for anyone that's not part of the business school, I will tell you, being acquired is a lot more profitable than going out of business.
Yes.
So we sold in 2016, and what happened was that we didn't know as a small business, right? I had used the engineering problem solving skill set to solve a lot of our small business problems. Yeah. I didn't know there were business brokers. I didn't know there were business attorneys. I didn't know there were business accountants. It's ironic. My parents had used the same attorney my entire life. He was our house closing attorney. He was our business attorney. He was our he was the like Frank's Red Hot. He put him on everything. And that was not the correct methodology, right? There are multidisciplines in every type of career, obviously, specifically in law, I've now learned. And I realized that after we sold the company and got raked over the coals in the M&A, there had to be a better way to money. There had to be a better way to do it. And so in 2018, after taking a hiatus after selling the company, I had a golden handcuffs contract, inventory count, staff turnover, computer system integration, et cetera. I took a 10-month hiatus trying to figure out what my next career move was going to be and what organization I wanted to impact next. And financial planning really just resonated with me.
Sure.
Very comically, Northwestern Mutual, my parent company, found me more so than I found them. And it just really resonated with me. It just really hit me. It was the right fit at the right time. It was the right place for me at the right time in my life. And I looking back now, I can't even imagine a world where I didn't become part of the organization. My 7-year anniversary with them is actually next week, which I'm really excited about.
Congratulations.
And as you mentioned, in 2023, because of what I've been able to achieve over the course of my career, they have now allowed me to open my own private branding inside of their corporate 100, Fortune 100 corporate headquarters, which is really, really cool and really exciting.
That's incredible.
And EVEREADY Financial is an homage to EVEREADY Hardware, my family business.
I love that.
And so now I'm bringing generational legacy planning and wealth planning into every single conversation just by the name alone of the brand.
Right.
So,
I'm a marketing professor, so I love that you're building the meaning of the organization right into your name, right into the soul of the company, and it clearly means a lot to you. You've mentioned this a few times, actually, giving back, and how much the community and the community that supports you, the community that came up in is important to you, and that feels very aligned with EVEREADY Hardware and what came up there. Talk to me a little bit about your experience with community and how community built you up, and then how now you're giving back to the community.
Yeah, so I will tell you, I went to a small private high school in New York City, Manhattan. When I went to that small private high school, I was the only engineering student that had graduated. 94 kids, not a big graduating class. For anyone that's been an engineer over the course of their life in high school was not my time, right? High school was not the time that I look back at with favorable memories. But I came to RIT and I found a community that I never knew existed that made me feel so at home so quickly. It was like a shot in the dark. Like it was just fantastic. And I loved my time here. And I'll give a quick plug for my fraternity, Phi Sigma Kappa, obviously, damn proud. And between the RIT community and my fraternal roots here at RIT, the years that I spent here are some of the best of my life. And because of that, you know, I truly believe that the engineering problem-solving skill set, I mean, even though I've been able to succeed in finance so heavily, is because I'm using the engineering problem-solving skill set to solve financial equations, right? Which I don't think a lot of financial planners come to the table with that type of like thought process or that critical thinking particularly.
Right.
And so that being the case, you know, I really look back at RIT as some of the best years of my life, and I said, okay, how do I help to create that experience for others, and how do I give someone else that's struggling, whether emotionally or physically or in their community, a chance to find RIT? So I'm really proud to announce I am a donor of RIT, obviously. At the same time, I've also hired my first co-op, which I'm really excited about.
This is incredible.
We just made them a full-time offer starting in January, so super excited about that as well.
I'd like to, if I may, I want to take an aside here. The RIT co-op program is a program where our students we cooperate with organizations to bring our students in for professional experience. It's a paid experience that provides, typically we start with a summer co-op, and then we can do semester co-ops as well. And if it goes well, first of all, the students get this incredible experience. The organizations get this new insight and some fresh blood. And if it goes really well, you hire on. It works out great for everybody. So you hired one of our students, actually one of my students from a marketing class that I was teaching. And so can you tell me about the impact why this student, what about this student makes him right for EverReady?
Yeah, so when we went shopping for a new individual we wanted to onboard into our team to impact the organization, RIT was the only place we were shopping. Like really transparently, like It was not a wide pool. Like we specifically narrowed in directly in the RIT co-op program. We interviewed about 22 different students throughout the course of the interview process. This gentleman just happened to stand out. He was absolutely sensational. Follow-up was great. Email communication was great. He made a 7-slide PowerPoint for his final interview, which I had never seen before.
Amazing.
I literally, in our firm now, I'm like the golden retriever, and so I'm not allowed to do interviews anymore. I'm like the last round of interviews. My chief operating officer, he does all the interviews now, and then I kind of come in like in the last one.
Right.
And literally within the first like 3 minutes of the interview, I was like, so can we hire him now? He's like, can you let him go through the hour-long interview at least? And so I'm not allowed to interview people anymore, specifically for that reason.
Well, I'm curious, you mentioned that you shopped only at RIT, and it sounds like that's because RIT had exactly what you were looking for. Why is that? What is it that RIT brought that made it that you knew you wanted to come here for your co-op?
You know, it's interesting you say like knew that you had what I wanted. And I'll tell you the truth, I don't know if I knew what I wanted particularly.
Sure.
What I did know is that I needed somebody that had a skill set that I didn't have. And with the departments you guys have within the Saunders College of Business, where I was able to reach out directly to the school, I was able to ask, like, you know, I worked with a teammate who's absolutely phenomenal, the gentleman that brought me here today, obviously. And he was able to like literally fine tune exactly what I was looking for. You know, I was able to give him a basic job description, and he was able to help me navigate, you know, that's actually this major versus that major, and that's this discipline versus that discipline.
Right.
You know, I've been out of touch a little bit, right? I left here in 2008, so it's been about, you know, 17 years now at this point, give or take, which is crazy to even say.
Believe me.
It's the time I've been gone is now almost equal to the age I was when I started here, which is like, that's really,
I have to reckon with that with my students a lot.
Yeah, the hairline unfortunately does that for me.
No, he gives it away.
But I'm looking back at it, and he was able to help me navigate you know, the process. And I think that it wasn't even so much the institution or the education or even the back, it was the fact that the business relationship of working with the community was so easy for us, right?
Sure.
Like I was able to shoot out an email, explain what I was looking for. I went back to work doing my job, and then my inbox started getting flooded. So yes, the academics, amazing. Yes, the co-op program, fantastic. Yes, the individual themselves, spectacular. We couldn't be happier. But I think also working with the institution was so easy that, you know, I thought about like the agita, right? So even as the CEO, I thought about, you know, Indeed or Monster, all these different, and I'm like, how do you even start this process? And RIT made it so easy.
It's like curated almost.
Yeah, like I honestly, like I probably wouldn't shop elsewhere again.
Amazing.
Just because it was just such an ease of use and no barrier of entry.
Right, very little friction. And I think it's interesting, you mentioned a few times the cross-disciplinary aspect of this and how RIT is amazing because of all the different colleges we have. You can come here for business and you walk away knowing things about computer science and engineering that you never would have thought about before. How does that affect, you know, in your experience? And I'm curious too, not just from the perspective of the co-op, which I think is fascinating, but your own professional experience. You've changed career paths a few times. And the sense I'm getting is that cross-disciplinary aspect of your history was a huge part of that. So how do you build up that cross-disciplinary skill set that would allow somebody to have the flexibility not just to outperform in your organization, but also in a career like yours, which has been so fascinating and impressive? How does that multidisciplinary thought process really work for you?
I think the biggest thing, and so I will be transparent, we're a company of 7 as of right now, right? So we're going to be 8 over the course of the next couple of months. We're going to hire another individual, another RIT co-op eventually. We're looking for summer of 2026, so everyone that's paying attention, that's what we're looking for. And for us as of right now, I kind of believe in a corporation as small as ours. Everyone kind of wears a couple different hats,
Always.
right? We just started getting to the point now, we had our first company offsite last Friday, and during that offsite, we started building a lot of processes and actually writing things down and putting them pen to paper. And we realize now that we finally have the bandwidth for the actual clients that we service compared to our business processes, where people can start wearing 3 versus 7 hats, or 5 versus 22 hats particularly.
Yeah.
So now as we start to do that, right, everyone has to be cross-trained in some way, because in a company as small as ours, right, I'm even thinking about, multidisciplinary studies of, a startup life. In the startup life, everybody does everything, right?
Yeah.
When I work with a small business owner, right, we call them chief pooper scooper, right? That's their job.
That's
their job title.
Yep.
So I think that multidisciplinary research and information is just so pertinent, because I think for you to actually find what you're passionate about, you can't be so narrow-minded in what your goals are, but also particularly what your interests involve. And so I think that by diversifying your interests and your likes and your flavors, it helps you to figure out where you want to go and what you want to be.
Yeah.
And as you kind of talked about, right, if I didn't have those career changes, right, the reason I shifted from engineering and intellectual property law to working for my father was because I love the relationship and the interpersonal connection. Him and I had a shorthand after 8 years of working together that we could finish other sandwiches nice and easily all day long.
Yeah.
And then moving into finance, it just came to the point where I had ran a small company. I had already operated managing, a multitude of individuals, managing a really, expansive profit and loss statement. And I realized that, again, there had to be a better way to money, but I also wanted to have something that was my own.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have something that I could actually impact a wider community. And we're really blessed. We right now service 845 families across 32 states as of today.
Wow.
And we're really grateful
across
for that.
32 states. That's incredible.
Yeah, really grateful for the opportunity.
Huge reach. Now, I've heard you mention this as well, relationships. And it seems to me, you've mentioned your relationship with your father and with EVEREADY Hardware. You've mentioned your relationship with your clients. You mentioned your relationship with RIT. You mentioned your relationship with the CEO of Northwestern Mutual. And all of this. How do you build those relationships? How do you manage those relationships and not just to get the value out of it, but how do you grow them in a way where you're giving back as well?
So it's interesting. If you get any of my emails, you'll see that the tagline on the bottom of every single email literally says, grateful for the opportunity to be of service and looking forward to doing so for years to come.
Amazing.
And my team didn't know this, but I addressed it on my quarterly offsite last week. My grandfather used to say that. And so,
really?
Right, I talked about we were doing about 7.2 million, right? And realistically, our biggest competitor was doing 2.1 billion, the one that acquired us.
Right.
So we were such a small piece of their overarching strategy, but comparatively, the only way we could ever win was on service, right? The only way we could onboard a client, the only way we could keep a relationship is because of service. And so my grandfather always taught me that part of our responsibility historically as a family was to be of service. And so when I build these relationships, I take that service mentality towards the balance of my relationships, and I think to myself, what can I be doing to give back? And givers gain start to give back to the people that I'm working with.
Yeah.
And I think that as you start to have a servant mentality, it really changes the way that you build relationships with people, because now at this point, right, it starts to create a connection that I think becomes so tangible that it's hard to almost ignore in a sense, if that resonates at all particularly. Yeah,
absolutely. You find these people or these organizations and they become a part of your identity almost in the most powerful ways. I think that's just fantastic in the way that you've built that up. Now, I just want to transition back before we kind of wrap up here. Looking at these co-ops that are coming into your organization, look at these incredible students that I've got the luxury of working with every day, and now you do too. If you had one piece of advice for a student in undergrad right now, looking at the world, looking at artificial intelligence and all the changes that are happening and how fast they're happening, and given how you've been able to pivot in your career, what is the number one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who's looking at graduating in the next couple of years in how to lead a career that is as impressive and successful as yours?
Well, thank you. I appreciate the compliment. The check's in the mail. What I would say to you is that, work ethic generally can't be outpaced. I will admit I'm not the smartest man in the room. I barely ever am the smartest man in the room. But I do have some of the best work ethic that I know as of right now. And that would really be the biggest thing. I wish that I had some secret. I do these speeches nationally all over the country. I talk to young students. I talk to young financial advisors all over North America. I just spoke to an office in Seattle a couple of weeks ago. I spoke in Milwaukee a couple of weeks ago. I spoke in a national conference a couple of weeks ago. I wish there was a secret. I wish that there was like a special resume cover letter, or I wish that there was like a format, or I wish that there was some type of way to answer an interview question that really just like resonated with employers. It's more about putting yourself out there and doing the work ethic, right? It's kind of what got you here is also going to get you where you want to go. What I mean by that is, right, the multitude of things that excited you and made you interesting and also got you to RIT.
Right.
Those continuing to foster those passions are what's going to help you get to where you want to go, obviously. Because no matter what you do, if you work hard and you're passionate about what you want to achieve, that'll come through in your career. You know, I was listening to a great article about like work-life balance and how that might be a misnomer comparatively to work-life equalization.
Sure.
And it really resonated with me a couple of weeks ago when I first started hearing about this, where your work should complement what your life cycle is, right? It shouldn't have to be this balance where you're giving up one for the other or you're degrading one for the other. They should work together in perfect harmony. And I think that's the biggest thing, is you should find a career that works in harmony with what you want to achieve over the course of your life and an institution you can impact. Because if those things are true, everything else will kind of fall into place.
That is fantastic advice, John. Thank you very much. And thank you so much for your time. It's been a fantastic conversation. I know my students have gotten lots of value out of it. And if you're interested in RIT students for co-ops, please come talk to us, Saunders College of Business. My friend Julio will take very good care of you, as he's taking good care of John here. John, thank you again for your time. We really appreciate having you here. It's been fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Of course.